Why, hello there everyone. I'm Laxow, aka the Kumo Sensei. Minasan, ohayo gozaimasu. And today we're actually rehousing these Neoholothele incei. And this video was supposed to be for last week, but I had to buy that tarantula. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll leave it in the top right, go check it out. But essentially though, that video came out of the blue and it basically moved my rehousing video that was supposed to be for that Friday to today, for today's Tuesday video. So let's get straight into rehousing these Neoholothele incei. So if you're new to this channel, I actually produced this species, and all of these slings are from the slings that I kept, that I produced, and I still have those videos here in this channel, so go check it out if you want to see the breeding process of the species. But anyhow though, I do have a few of these left, but the ones I'm keeping, which you're seeing in this video, or a small portion of them that is, these are going to be future breeders, and I still have a lot more to rehouse. But this is essentially what I've kept of the first batch, or the first egg sac that was produced, which I've shown here on the channel, and there's only about 7 of these here, so these 7 here is what I've kept, and I will raise these up, and hopefully these guys will make it to adulthood, which I can breed them then. But either way, I have a lot already, so if I lose these, or if I sell these, or if anything happens in the future to where I don't have these anymore, it wouldn't be necessarily a big issue. But I would like to have more bloodline if possible, so that's why I'm keeping these. And let us talk about my rehousing methods. So I really don't go all out when it comes to rehousing. My rehousing method is pretty straightforward and what most tarantula breeders do. They just pretty much grab a bit of the webbing or the entire webbing of the old enclosure and just put it into the new enclosure with the spider. And that pretty much just makes it easier for the tarantula to settle in because they're familiar with their own webbing. And this will make them adapt to their new homes much more quicker, and this pretty much makes them settle down much more quickly, so you don't have to wait too long before they settle in until you can feed them again. So this pretty much just speeds up that process, and this is something I was taught, which I still do to this day. I even did this for OBTs as well, so if you want to go check that out, I'll leave it in the top right if you want to see that video. But in general though, I usually do this for the heavy webbing species, or species that tends to web quite a bit. And honestly, it's always worked, and it still works for me. But hey, to each their own. And a lot of people may be wondering why our enclosures are very simple for us tarantula breeders. And this pretty much applies for the majority of the exotic pet trade that is a breeder. Whether it's ball pythons, leopard geckos, Pac-Man frogs, etc. Usually us breeders keep it very simple, so that way it stays nice and tidy. And also, it pretty much keeps us into rhythm, and also it saves money as well, if I'm being transparent here. And honestly, it always amazes people how we keep our exotic pets very simple, but for some reason our animals are very healthy, they're plump, and doing very well. And really, it just comes down to experience, knowledge, and time. And to those future tarantula breeders, and to those who are new to tarantula breeding, and those coming into this path, you will eventually develop your own system, your own rhythm, and how you do things when it comes to tarantula breeding, rehousing, etc. And pretty much the majority of us will eventually come to this conclusion of simplicity is key. So allow me to give you my thoughts on this species when it comes to the market. This is a hobby staple, and it is bred by pretty much everyone, including me obviously. I personally think that second instar Neoholothele incei are only worth about $5 a piece. Maybe they're worth the $15 to $20 price tag if they were about an inch to an inch and a half in leg span. And then adults, when it comes to adult females, I'd say they're worth about $50 to $75 for a reasonable price. And for males, I'd say $25 to maybe $45 is a reasonable price for a mature male. But in general though, this species is not very expensive, and if somebody is charging you over $100 for a female Neoholothele incei, whether it's a gold color form or the olive color form, I really think that's a ripoff of a price. $75 is like a baseline for me in my personal opinion, if you're trying to get a female that is. But yeah though, that's just my personal thoughts of the Neoholothele incei when it comes to this market and whatnot and the pricing for the species. So now let us move on. So essentially from here all the way to March is pretty much growing, rehousing, molt updates, and the typical stuff. Breeding season will not come back until about March to April-ish, once I start making plans about what I want to breed and what I want to keep, and what females I want to give away or sell because I may not use them anymore. So essentially what I'm saying is that here on this channel for the next couple to a few months, we're going to be rehousing a lot, molt updates a lot, and feeding as well. And breeding will be put to the side until March to April. And I also do have some side breeding projects as well, but those are for me personally. They're not anything too crazy. They're just something I'm working behind the scenes to see what I can do with them and pretty much test the waters out. But I will say this though, if something comes up or something interesting happens on a side breeding project, then I will introduce it to the channel to you guys. But for the most part, most of them are not very interesting, or if not interesting, then most of it is personal because I'm either working with another breeder and they just want to keep it quiet so that way it doesn't bring any attention to them, or something along the lines of that. Because trust me, some people just don't want to see their males or their females on this channel because it's they just don't want the spotlight. And it's understandable, everybody needs their privacy as well. But let us talk about that for a second, working with me. So it's kind of strange to say this, but usually people don't approach me directly when it comes to trying to establish something, whether it's a breeding connection, etc, etc. Usually it's always through somebody else as a means to contact through me. For example, if there is a breeder or a vendor that I work with, someday I might just show up at a show and they'll be like, hey, this is a friend of mine, he's interested in working with you. And that's pretty much how most people approach me. And honestly, meeting me in person is kind of hit or miss because I don't really show up to shows as often, but when I do show up, I usually bring something. If I don't show up, I just don't show up. When somebody approaches me directly, that's saying something. You probably has a lot of guts or something. But to be honest, when I'm at a show, I'm usually all over the place. So I guess that's why it's kind of hard to get into contact with me because I'm just trying to get things going and whatnot. But of about 20-ish people that have approached me, I'd say only about 2 to technically 3 people have approached me directly. But yeah, if you approach me directly, I'll give you credit for sure because that doesn't happen often. And I say that because I'm just a local tarantula breeder. I'm not no big, large-scale company now. But to reach out to me as an aspiring tarantula breeder, asking me for advice and whatnot, I'll give you credit for that. But without further ado, I guess I wrap it up around here. So, as always, the typical, like, comment, and subscribe. I upload every single Tuesday and Friday here on the channel. And also, feel free to support me on IG and on Patreon. And with that, stay lax and Laxow out from the Kumo Sensei.